So I think I don't know how else to start this conversation by saying what I said before we started recording is that I think, Alex, you're more prepared to talk about Sam Smith's new album than I am, just given the fact and the impression that you gave me is that you've been a huge fan of Sam's for a while, haven't you?
Absolutely. Ever since, I think I discovered Sam when most people discovered them, which was when Stay With Me came out.
Mhm.
Huge song, pretty different from anything they put out like now, but yeah, that's where it started for me. And Latch with Disclosure, that was another big song for me.
Yeah, totally. And like, I was just watching their music videos for Gloria, like the fourth album that just came out this past month. And it is really different from when Sam Smith burst out in like 2014, I think it was. Like, Stay With Me was still very, it was like a reserved song, but he kind of caught, or they kind of caught people's attention because or they had this knack for like vocal layering, which is something that a lot of artists have done, but Sam did it in a way that was really interesting and just like caught a lot of people's ear. And they're still doing like that kind of stuff on this album, but now he's even more eccentric. They're more just open with their sexuality. Like, and that's all stuff too that like we'll get into on this album. But I agree, like Sam Smith is nowhere where they were when they first like started.
Absolutely. And I think when they first came on the scene too, Sam's voice is just like so incredible. And like the range, the power, and they said like a lot of their influences were huge, like female artists growing up, which really kind of played in. Like the songs that they were singing were like Whitney Houston songs and like Mariah Carey, and um huge fans of both. So like those influences definitely show in their vocal style as well.
And something else that really, to kind of kick it off with talking about Gloria, it's kind of like a genre hopping album. Like Sam has always kind of been in that wheelhouse of like soul R&B, but this album in particular, like there's a couple songs that are a little bit more like club friendly, a little bit more like dance vibey. And for some weird reason, I like listen to the album every time and it still all makes sense to me. Like you would think with all these different sounds that the album isn't cohesive, but I would say it's pretty cohesive, right?
Yes, and I think especially when you look at the common, like there's a lot of religious undertones to it. There's very a lot of gospel undertones, like a lot of choirs are used in different places that you wouldn't normally expect. Um but then lyrically it's very cohesive as well, going together with like the themes of self-love and um like reflecting on experiences, and yeah, so it does feel very cohesive in a way, even though it's so diverse sonically.
Yeah, I agree. And the one song that I mean everyone knows because it blew up on TikTok, like it hit number one on the Billboard. Now it's nominated for a Grammy, which is wild, like Unholy with Kim Petras. That was the one song that it doesn't really fit on the album in the sense that it sounds like anything else. Like it literally stands out, but not in like they were really smart at weaving it into the set list or into the track list because it comes off of Perfect, which is a duet with Just You Raise, and it's like very low and very kind of introspective. And then all of a sudden it just fades into Unholy, which is like very in your face and very, very loud. But it just like it works. It's so weird. Like I don't know how it just I don't know. It just it works. It works.
That transition from Perfect to Unholy needs to be like studied. Like that was, I don't know how they did that. Like because you're right, it was like a ballad out of nowhere. You just hear like, and then it escalates into it, and then you're like, that's how it fits in. Okay, that works.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think I said the exact same thing. I was like, whoa, like that kind of worked. Cause then it goes up in that kind of energy and tone, and then it goes back down, I think, with Lose You, like right after, or there might be another song before that actually. But it was just like it is an exclamation point on the album, but it comes so like early on still. Like it's only like the fourth or fifth track. Like we still got a whole other half to go.
I know. I genuinely wondered, like hearing that song, one, if there were going to be others like it, because I feel like it's a very big song, very big earworm, but I feel like it's very unique to anything that we've ever heard.
Mhm.
Um, so I was really wondering if we were going to hear more of that, or if we were going to, um, that was going to be its own special thing, which it ended up being. And then you're right, like right after that, it kind of dropped off. That transition wasn't like as like seamless, but it was like, yeah, just a huge shift.
Yeah, and I think another reason that it flows so well, the whole album, is the interludes that they throw in between a couple of the songs. I think that's something we're starting to see more and more with artists and albums nowadays, like interludes kind of trying to help keep the energy and the flow going more smoothly. And there were a couple on here, like even, you know, I think it's, yeah, Gimme into I'm Not Here to Make Friends. There's like a slight interlude, I think, at the very end of Gimme, I want to say. And also that coupled with, and this is something I'm really curious to ask your opinion on, coupled with like, the two of the three Jesse Ray's like collabs, it just, that part really flowed really well. Do we know if they're like friends or something? Because I was like, Jesse must be getting a pretty good payout from doing this album.
I don't know. I believe Sam like has kind of praised Jessie and her music before, and so I think that was more of like, I'm a fan of you, you're a fan of me, like let's work together. And um yeah, and I love that Jessie makes appearances on multiple songs from the album, and they're ones where her voice fits in very well and her vibe. And like you said on Give Me the Hook, like that couldn't have been delivered a way that Jessie can deliver that. So I thought that that was excellent.
And that song, I kid you not, has been stuck in my head. I was really trying not to get stuck in my head, but it's so easy.
Mhm.
Um, and that song too has a little bit of like an Afrobeat component to it. It also features Coffee, the rapper. Um, and that's something we don't really hear Sam's voice on too much either. That kind of like island kind of vibe, his voice fit really well. I was like shocked at how well. I guess like when you sum it up, Gloria is full of like a lot of surprises because as I'm talking it out more, I'm like, yeah, I was surprised by this. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, and then also on Gimme, like Sam didn't try to like change their voice or their style or anything. Like it was really just like Sam did their thing, like Jessie did her thing, Coffee did their thing, and like
Mhm.
it was just incredible all around. And Coffee's verse fit extremely well too. I really thought that that style was great for that. And
Mhm.
then yeah, Dorothy's interlude, like it sounds just like kind of flipping through channels to something that eventually leads into like the beginning of I'm Not Here to Make Friends with the RuPaul sample, and it flowed right into it, and thought that was really cool.
I thought it was interesting too, and I'm not sure if you've seen the video. I watched the video before this, but they use it at the beginning of the video too. And there's a video for both of those songs. So I kind of like how, Sam, and this is something else I think a lot of artists are doing now. They're creating that cohesive image, not only just audibly, like listening to the album, they're doing it visually, like whether it's through like visuals or videos. Like I think in the videos too they used a lot of like the similar actors,
Mhm.
and it's just like you're creating an image, like I said, in both those regards, which I think is something that's, it's fantastic because it kind of creates a more holistic approach for the listeners, but then you're
Yeah,
also, gaining a new insight on the art through watching something or listening to something.
exactly. And I think that, I mean, obviously, like as pop stans, we love content, but like it just creates an entire vibe for the era. It helps more into perspective the vision that the artist was trying to create too by providing music videos, live performances. Um, yeah, I just think it is the best way to create a full interactive era. And yeah, I just think it's awesome.
And I'm from watching these videos too, I never realized how eccentric Sam Smith actually is. Like you might know about this more because you've kept up with them longer than I have. But I'm watching like, Unholy and I'm watching Not Here to Make Friends and I'm like they really are like he's very coy and very eccentric with, his clothes or their presentation of themselves. And I read in like
Mhm.
an interview too that I think it was about Gimme and saying how he's a sexual person. He's trying to get more comfortable with his sexuality and things like that. And I'm like, now knowing that and then watching slash listening to these songs, I'm like, yep, I see it. I see it.
So this is like relatively new actually, because like in the past, this is the first album we've had since Sam discovered or came forward with their non-binary identity
Hmm.
and, forward with um their sexuality side of themselves. And because before, I think they were known as like a crooner, when we were talking about Stay With Me, how that was such a different style, like um Way Too Good for Goodbyes, that song, like all of that was just kind of standing in front of the microphone and singing and, pouring emotion, yes, but like this is kind of the first time we've seen all different sides. Like they're becoming a pop diva kind of, and that's just kind of what we want to see. Like the fashion and everything. I love it. And, in the video for I'm Not Here to Make Friends, like the big pink coat.
Hmm.
And then they wore it on SNL. They did on Holy, and for Kim Petras' verse, the dress opens and she's just sitting under it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I just love the confidence and the new stylistic approach being exuded this era.
No, I agree. It's definitely making a statement. And a big component of Gloria too that I caught with Sam's interpretation of the album is it's really like a coming of age type album or a coming to realization. And this was something that I was really interested in. I was listening really closely to the last two songs, just Gloria and We Love Who We Love, or Who We Love. And Gloria is just, a straight up gospel song with like a choir and Sam singing over it. So it's like Gloria's kind of like reaching a type of salvation and
Yeah,
realization. And then when that transitions into Who We Love with Ed Sheeran, it's like that acceptance factor of just being comfortable with your sexuality and comfortable with who you are. And I kid you not, I was writing it out in my notes and I like looked back and I was like, he definitely did that on purpose. That had to be intentional. Like that was what he
yeah.
was what they're aiming for, you know?
Like Gloria being at the very end of the album too, like, after all this, because Sam said in an interview that Gloria kind of represents this more feminine energy that they're letting release from them. And so for Gloria, towards the very end, my high school choir actually did that song. That's why I first heard it. But kind of introducing Gloria and saying, this is for Gloria, and then going into Who We Love. I feel like that placement kind of represents acceptance of this new identity and or not new identity, but the one that was within. And yeah, and then Who We Love, I just thought that was beautiful with Ed Sheeran on it too. Saying like, it's I feel like kind of a generic message with the queer community, but like love who you love. But then the way that they did that is, they talked about all the beautiful things that come with love. And they said like it's not wrong to want the world for someone was one of the lyrics. Like I don't know. I think the way that they executed that showed the meaning behind the album perfectly.
Mhm. And I think it's even more telling when you have an artist like Ed Sheeran, who one is already so well established and is like a massive artist, and two, not to assume, but I'm pretty sure he identifies as straight or heterosexual. So it's like when you kind of have that coupling too of a non-binary artist and a straight artist singing about, love is love, it just makes it even more powerful. So I really loved and appreciated that as well. I thought it was good.
Absolutely. Every community, can fight their battles on their own, but to make, to kind of get the message across, you need allies too, and you need people who are going to speak up for you while you're speaking up for yourself. And then, that's kind of how you spread acceptance.
Mhm.
And so I really think that that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I think that's what Sam is trying to get at with the album too. Like it's kind of, like we're saying, like this coming of age journey or having this aspect of Gloria that they've always kind of felt coming into fruition. I think that's the goal with the music is to spread that like grander message of acceptance and saying, I am who I am, you can be who you are, and we won't have any issues. Let's just coexist.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did you have any favorite moments on the album, like favorite tracks or anything else that stood out?
One that actually stood out to me was Six Shots.
Mm,
Because that song, I mean, I love R&B music, but also like so it had kind of an R&B undertone, but Sam was kind of talking about how they're very open to having like a physical relationship in order to kind of heal pain, but they're very, very not open to like love or intimacy
Hmm.
in that sense. And like they keep repeating, there's no loving me. I don't know. I thought it was lyrically complex almost, but so even though when it started, I was like, oh, this is gonna be like a bedroom burner, but like yeah, it ended up taking on a bunch of different meanings as the song went on.
Yeah, the literally the only way I describe that song in my notes were sultry, silky smooth, much like the subject matter. Because it was just it was a clever way of literally almost covering up what you were saying, but being very coy about it, I guess you could say.
Yeah, like he had come to my room, but like I'm in there, but like come here, you know?
Yeah, he's
Like
very like I said, they're very coy about that kind of stuff, but it's just very it's so interesting to analyze, like how Sam Smith, like we said, has kind of made this overarching career shift from being like a crooner, like you said, to being very like sexually explicit and just full blown wearing, giant pink gowns and having people come out from under it. Like
yeah.
it's wild. It's wild. I really liked too, like Perfect was a really good one. I also really liked No God. And like the
Mm,
first two songs, No God and Love Me More, kind of to me at least when I first heard them, were more of like a 90s R&B type vibe. And I liked
yeah.
No God because I think it has like a catchy hook and chorus. And he does a lot of like acapella and like vocal harmonizing with himself, like I've mentioned before. Um, and I thought it was like a good track to kind of ease into the rest of the album and also present that component of like we're going back to the self journey and having that self realization of being like, you're no god, you're no teacher, so I'm gonna do it myself essentially, or I'm gonna teach myself.
Yeah. And this could really be sung to any closed-minded person in general. Like I think a lot of people like to be very stubborn in their viewpoints for like, either seeking control or like just wanting to get a rise out or just like straight up wanting to be right. And this is kind of saying, this kind of humbles that person. And so I think there is something kind of powerful about them singing this over such like a slow beat so calmly.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think that that really got the message across very well.
I agree. I agree.
And
It's kind of like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, no, you're good.
I was gonna
Um, sorry.
no, I was gonna say, yeah, it's kind of like presenting a similar message, but in different contexts each time, it seems. This is another thing that you also might have more insight on, Alex, because, like we've said, you're such a big Sam Smith fan and you've been following them for so long. I didn't realize, at least with Gloria and leading up to the release of the album, Sam was very open with fans. Like, I think they write a lot on their website, like, they put out journals every season. And also, the Instagram post that he had, or they had when Gloria came out, was also very telling and very open. Is that something that Sam has always been, like, very open with the fans and saying, like, this is what the album is, this is kind of what you can expect?
More so over time, I would say. And
Mm.
I think that that is just kind of a big, beautiful way to bring in insight. I didn't see the Instagram post personally, but like, I'm gonna have to after. But yeah, no, Sam is very open in terms of their creative process and what inspires them to put out a song or a body of work. And also very open with like different processes. Like a lot of times we'll get random songs before an album, before they have an album finished because they just want to share that process. Like Love Me More was the first song that was released of this entire thing. And um I think that that set the tone in such a good way. It kind of showed what place they were in. I think it was a year ago that it was released. And
Hmm.
um from there we got Unholy, obviously, and um, then Gimme, and then just last week they put out Gloria,
Hmm.
um, which, I feel like to the general public might be odd as like a standalone single, but I feel like that was a great way to introduce the album too by putting out just that interlude a week early. And I don't know, it kind of got me really excited, but yes, they are very vulnerable and open about their process, and I think that that's great for an artist fan connection.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely opens up that connectivity aspect. And I mean, Gloria, from reading this description, I have it in my hands from the Instagram post. Gloria is one of those albums that, in two ways, you can kind of say we're a long time coming, like both in a career professional way for Sam and their fans, but also on a personal level, because Sam literally wrote that if he literally wrote, I've been working my whole life to put this album out or something like this album. And that goes back to us talking about Gloria and the whole concept of this kind of coming to a higher acceptance and realization in it of yourself. And it's just, you're just gonna have to listen to it. So I mean, Alex, thank you so much again. I've had you on so many times on the podcast. It's always a pleasure when I get to have you come on and talk about something that you also really love. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, David. It's always a great time talking to you. Yeah, probably see you again in the future.
Oh yeah, you'll be back. Alex is always back, everybody.